Join us in today's conversation when we speak to David MacDonald, the Executive Director of MUFON.
And it was fascinating to meet with these folks because almost all of them said they have never in their entire career seen the level of bipartisanism as there is on this topic. Both sides, lockstep, they want the truth, and they're not getting the truth, and they know it. I just looked at the other guys, they looked at me, and at that time, our radio kicked on, and it was the tower. And all the man said was, did anybody else see that?
Oh, wow.
And I keyed the mic. I said, yes, sir, the Flamingo crew saw it. And he said, we will speak no more of this. What if the president did come out today and say, folks, we've been lying to you for 89 years. There really is extraterrestrial life out there, and they're here, and they're our trading partners. And wow, we got free fuel for everybody. Now you got panic in the streets. President Clinton, towards the end of his term, he was asked, you said you would give us disclosure. Why haven't you? And he says, I haven't because I can't. He says, that information is being held by a part of the government that I am not a part of.
The following program is presented for general information, education and entertainment purposes only and is not intended to be advice of any kind. The content, views, thoughts and opinions expressed in this program are those of the individuals involved. The use of information on this program is at the user's own discretion.
All right, Stuart, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Mike. I'm really loving doing the show with you. I know I always say that, but it's absolutely true. And I'm absolutely in awe by how broad this topic is. It's even surprising me.
Yeah, I can say the same. I mean, it definitely, ETs, UFOs, UAPs, disclosure, it touches every facet of life as we know it. It truly, truly does. That's actually an interesting thing also, because as I'm discovering, not ever doing a podcast before or anything on YouTube, YouTube tries to pigeonhole you into like, you can only talk about this one very specific topic and you have to talk about that and nothing else. And we do that. We talk about UFOs and spirituality, but that topic, of course, is so, there's all these offshoots and rabbit holes and such that I think a lot of times the robot doesn't know who to pump our conversations out to, because one day we're talking about nuts and bolts or crash retrievals, and the next we're talking about esoteric or an experiencer or something to that effect. But it is what it is. I enjoy the variety as well, for sure.
Well, the diversity is keeping me interested, and I can tell it's keeping our audience interested because our subscribership just keeps growing.
It definitely does. And the audio only is something that I think only I can maybe see, but everyone out there on the audio only, thanks for tuning in too. You guys are another growing audience, and we do appreciate that. We welcome you along this journey with us.
Okay, well, something else I wanted to mention was serendipitously, we seem to get the right guests at the right time. Scheduling seems to work out. I just really feel like we're in the flow here, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I am too. Why don't we just give, not to go into specifics, but a little bit under the hood or the background. There are times that we're scheduled to talk to someone, and then for whatever reason, something happens where we don't get to, or it gets pushed for several weeks or whatever. But then when we actually do get to it, it's like it was meant to be at that time. So I think this channel and this overall conversation officially has a life of its own. We're along for the ride. Whoever we might want to talk to, we'll talk to them, but it's not going to be on our timeline. It is a wild, wild thing, man. I
actually find it kind of reassuring. It's like something or some energy is guiding us, and it feels very good.
Yeah, that might sound weird to some people, but I 100% agree with that.
Love that. We're in the flow here, Mike.
Absolutely, we are. Welcome one and all, wherever and whenever you may be. This is Universal Disclosure, Meet in the Moment. My name is Mike, an active UFO field investigator in Southern California, with my friend and co-host,
Reverend Stu in Melbourne, Australia.
And Stuart, all of our guests are special people for sure, but today is going to be more of a rare event, I think. We're going to be speaking with the Executive Director of MUFON, Mr. David MacDonald.
Wow, that's a big deal. And like you said, all our guests are special, but I feel particularly privileged by this guest we've got today.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. I'm not sure he does too many podcasts at all or interviews in terms of, on camera, as it were, or audio. But I'm really excited to talk to him because what people might not realize, this is no secret, but it's maybe not as well known either. MUFON has been meeting with the lawmakers in Washington, D.C. on a quarterly basis and sharing cases of interest that we're investigating.
Wow, well, that indicates what a high regard MUFON is viewed in, how it's viewed in a high way by some of these officials in Washington.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And, every show I say I'm an active UFO investigator. I don't particularly always say MUFON because this is an independent production of that. And we're just here talking about our own personal opinions and such. And even though we're going to be talking with David, who is the executive director, I'm still going to say this is an independent production because other conversations that we do have don't have anything to do with MUFON or their views. So just putting that out there. But for those who might not know, MUFON started in 1969. It was originally called the Midwest UFO Network, founded by John Schuessler, Walter Andrus, and Alan Utke, right around the time that the U.S. Air Force closed Project Blue Book. And speaking of Blue Book, for those who haven't checked out our conversation with Paul Hynek, I'll put a link to that in the description of this episode. Paul Hynek was one of the sons of the late Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was the advisor to the U.S. Air Force, scientist, astrophysicist, and he studied all these UFO reports and sightings in the 1950s and 60s, and that was a fascinating conversation. So, anyways, they're getting back to MUFON. There's thousands of investigators who volunteer around the world. It's a global nonprofit, and myself included as a field investigator. And we're everywhere, and we look at all the reports that come in. And in fact, there are. I'm just going by memory here, but I did actually do an article that came out, I think, in last year's MUFON Journal. On average, we receive 7,000 or 8,000 reports per year, and then it gets broken out into different regions and such. I did a whole study on just California, and came up with the conclusion that you're most likely to see an ET craft. Well, I don't have it in front of me, actually, but I don't know. Probably should just snip that section out.
That sounds interesting. I'm intrigued by that. I'll have to ask you later.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe at the end, what I'll do is I'll look up the data and we'll revisit this at the end, just because it's quite fascinating. But anyway, there's also a wing of MUFON called ERT, the Experiencer Resource Team, for those who have been taken aboard a craft or have seen a non-human entity. There's folks who can help you work through that. So it's been around for many, many decades, and it is the largest and I think most well-respected place to go to make a report. And it's really surprising to me in a way that the caliber of folks who come through, you might think that it's just a civilian volunteer place. It's what do they do? Well, we get a lot of actually military, current, former military, law enforcement, first responders, doctors, coming forward with this, in addition to lay people, and pretty much name any type of background. But I'm very surprised at the caliber of reports that come through. It's quite fascinating.
That's very encouraging. I like that people feel confident to talk about their experiences to MUFON, and that MUFON is so good at collating that information.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is there's a confidentiality. Like I had to go through not only the training and the testing, but a background check and signing off on a couple of forms, and the witness identity is always confidential. There's sometimes cases where the witness will be okay coming public and sharing a story, but that's a separate kind of thing. But by default, it's all confidential. We never reveal that, and that's important because people are comfortable to talk about these wild things that have happened or that they've seen because they know it's just in confidence.
I feel good about what MUFON does, and I think they play an important role. And I honor and respect what you do there, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. I'm proud to be a part of it. So let's talk about a little bit about David here, because I've met him a couple of times, and but I didn't realize all of this. This is quite fascinating. So David started his entrepreneurial career around age 8, shining shoes in the bars in the streets of his hometown. And around 10 or 11, he read Project Blue Book and many other early flying saucer books. His adult career started in a laboratory, working on the development team that produced such products as Ben Hold furniture polish, Windex, and Endust. However, being an entrepreneur by nature, he went on to establish and run a number of businesses, among which was the MacDonald Defense Company, which became the largest independent security firm in the region. Additionally, he owned a manufacturing firm which produced an array of wireless microphones, listening devices, and other clandestine gizmos. So he's definitely sort of cut out for the role that he has here. He also owned a bookstore and a photo studio specializing in model portfolios and underwater photography. And David served 8 years as a county peace officer in Kentucky. In 1991, he founded Flamingo Air and developed it into a full-time air carrier operation. He and his wife Sharon McGee have further developed Flamingo Air Academy, which is now global in scope and Cincinnati's premier flight and airline dispatch school. Dave resides with his wife Sharon in their home in northern Kentucky.
That's all amazing. Quite fascinating. Just for clarity, can you tell me what's a county peace officer? We don't have them here in Australia.
It's just sort of like another name for a police officer. It's interchangeable to that, as far as I understand it. Now, Kentucky might have something specific that I'm not aware of, but for the most part, it's similar to a police officer.
What a fascinating and diverse career this gentleman's had. I'm really super interested. You've piqued my interest, Mike.
Yeah, this is going to be quite a fascinating conversation, as they all are, but also potentially very timely.
Do you think he'll be open to like esoteric sort of layers to this conversation? I guess we'll find out.
I'm not sure. Let's find out. So let's bring him on in. Universal Disclosure Podcast proudly welcomes Mr. David MacDonald, Executive Director of MUFON. So David, welcome, and thank you so much for your time and visiting with us. We really appreciate that.
Oh, I very much enjoy being here. I wish I could get out to do more of this talking to the folks and getting the
Excellent. Be careful what you wish for, because once we put this out there, you might get podcasters all over the place wanting to reach out to you. But I was just kind of curious to sort of get right into it in a way, and we have a bunch of questions for you. But I know that it's no secret that MUFON's been meeting with Congress in Washington on a quarterly basis for a couple of years now at least. But I don't know that it's necessarily super well known either. So that's why I wanted to have the main focus of this conversation to be that, and ask you, what is it like to go to Washington and meet with our electeds to talk about UFOs?
Well, on one hand, it's quite an adventure. It's an honor. But on the other hand, it's a grind because we may have 7, 8 meetings, 9 meetings set up in a day. And one meeting is at this location, the next one's across town, then that one's down here someplace else. So, I mean, it's really a hectic schedule to keep up with. But at the time, we have been requested by, I believe it's 285 congressional members and 70 plus senatorial people to supply them with quarterly reports on the UFO situation. And we do that. Back when this first started, 23, 24, we was in Washington, I go sometimes twice a month. and
Oh,
just one meeting after another, and the demand was quite high. And it was fascinating to meet with these folks because almost all of them said they have never in their entire career seen the level of bipartisanism as there is on this topic. Both sides, lockstep, they want the truth, and they're not getting the truth, and they know it. So we've been in there. We supply them with a lot of information. There are bills that's been passed. There's all kinds of things going on. Getting it to fruitation's another story. But it's a fascinating thing. We have a tremendous amount of support in Washington, and I truly, in my heart of hearts, think that we've done some pretty impressive inroads. Many of the congressional people have spoken at the symposiums. I believe we're going to have one or two at the next one coming up this summer.
nice.
And I like to think we've done well. We've certainly got the recognition in Washington. And I'll tell you a funny story. To me, it was because I don't really, I'm kind of a nobody. And
I wouldn't say that.
leaving a restaurant one evening, and sitting over right next to the door was Chuck Schumer. And he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he said, "Hi, Dave, how are you?" And I said, "I'm fine, sir. How are you?" I never met the man in my life until that time. So
Wow.
sometime later, we was at their offices, because you rarely deal with the actual congressperson or senator. You usually deal with the chiefs of staff, and that's the true key. Most people don't know that. They're the ones that get it done. And I asked him, there's this chief of staff, and I said I was caught off guard. I said I never met the gentleman before, but he recognized, he called me by name. And the guy looked at me and laughed. He said, "Dave, everybody in Washington knows you." So I think that's a nice compliment for myself and for MUFON, that there is recognition, and it's spread. So it's been an incredible adventure. We have not been back to Washington except for once this year so far, sorely. But elections going on, all this craziness going on. So it's quite an adventure. I look forward to working with them more often, getting back into the program, and keeping the ball rolling. So that it's pretty neat.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm sure you'll be back. I mean, we're recording in April 2025 at this point, so we're still early in the year. And so I'm wondering, well, I'm actually kind of curious, how did this even come about in the first place? Did anyone from Washington reach out to MUFON? Did MUFON reach out to Washington? Like, how did that come to be where you started going there and sharing the stories and such, the cases?
Actually, MUFON has a long history of working with the government, further back than you might think.
Really?
As a matter of fact, in the 70s, one of the, at that time, board members of MUFON, a fellow very famous man, he would go to Washington once a month. It's Leonard Stringfield. And he would face to face, eyeball to eyeball with the president. It was Nixon at that time.
Oh.
And give him a report on the UFO studies. So we're going back to the 70s on that.
Wow.
And that continued up through Jimmy Carter. And he actually made the statement, President Carter, that I will never laugh at a person who says they've seen a UFO because I've seen one. And then after that, it kind of tapered off to, but let's go back even further. Let's go back to 1969 when MUFON first formed. And the reason it formed was because it was a backlash to the closing of Project Blue Book. And when that happened, no one had anywhere to file reports to get any kind of information. So MUFON said, we'll do it. The Air Force said, okay, here's the papers to fill out, here's the forms, here's the procedures. The FBI came in with a 12-step investigative program to teach our investigators proper techniques. And that was in 1969. And here we are, largest and oldest UFO investigating agency in the world. And we're still rocking. We've had some hard times last year. God, computer problems, jeez. But all of that is slowly coming behind us. And we're doing quite well. But yeah, MUFON has been involved for quite some time. And this is just the latest thrust, so to speak.
Oh, that's awesome. I had no idea that it went back that far with the government, as it were. I mean, I know it only started in 1969, but just for clarification, though, too, because I was actually but a friend of mine at one point said to somebody else when they were introducing me, he's like, yeah, he works for MUFON. They're a government agency. And I was like, oh, no, we're not a government agency. So just to clarify that, when you say that MUFON has been working with the U.S. government almost since the inception, can you confirm that I'm not unknowingly working for a government agency?
Absolutely. We are not a government entity in any way. We have no connection with the CIA or anyone else. So trust me, guys, we're not. We're absolutely independent.
All right, excellent. So, Stuart, do you have any? I mean, I got a bunch of questions here, but do you want to chime in with anything?
Yeah, one of the ones I was interested in, please, David, is would you say most MUFON investigators are experiencers, and how important would that aspect be for an investigator? And also, are you what you would term an experiencer?
Oh, well, first of all, yes, I have seen unidentified objects, only twice. And I've got thousands and thousands of hours in the cockpit, and I've never seen anything in the air that I couldn't identify. But we would give airplane rides at the local airport, and we'd set up back on the back deck and do the airplane rides. And one evening, it got to be about 10 o'clock, and we thought, oh, well, I think we're done, guys. Myself, two other pilots. So we said, okay, let's shut down, and you can walk to the end of the portico and into the bar. So let's go get a beer. We've been working all day. Okay. Well, just about the time we got to the door, I looked out across the field, and there was a red ball slowly moving across the field. And it was very reminiscent of, say, like a Roman candle ball, except it moved out, stopped right at the windsock, and boom, went right down into the ground. And I just looked at the other guys. They looked at me, and at that time, our radio kicked on, and it was the tower. And all the man said was, did anybody else see that?
Oh, wow.
And I keyed the mic. I said, yes, sir, the Flamingo crew saw it. And he said, we will speak no more of this. So that was my first actual physical event that I saw. And then I had another sighting while I was investigating another UFO. So those are the only two jaw droppers that I have ever personally experienced.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I'm curious. Why is it? I mean, maybe it's speculation, right? But why is it like when the tower comes on and said, yeah, anyway, see it, and yes, and then they're like, we will not speak anymore of it. Why has it always been like this never happened? Like, what's the big darn deal about that?
Well, I think going back to the early days, particularly 40s, 50s, 60s, You had a Cold War going on. Um, there was all kind of reasons why they didn't want anybody to get the idea that we did not have control over our own skies. I think that was the big thing. But the questions asked of me, no matter where I go, is why? Why do they not just tell us? I mean, we grew up with Star Trek and Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica, and I'm old enough to remember Flash Garden, Cap Video and the Video Rangers. I mean, space travel and particularly other life forms, really, it's old hat. We're not going to flip out. We're not going to go crazy in the streets. So I have two possible answers. One is the powers that be don't want the rest of the world to know what we've got. And I can sympathize with that. I don't think we necessarily need to know everything our government knows. There are security issues, and I understand that. But come on, guys, it's getting to be time now. We're not buying the story anymore. The other, and this is purely Dave speaking as a business person, it could be economic. What if the president did come out today and say, folks, we've been lying to you for 89 years. There really is extraterrestrial life out there, and they're here, and they're our trading partners. And wow, we got free fuel for everybody. Now you got panic in the streets. Think about it for a minute. That would rock us badly. Almost all of the financial systems in the world are based on oil at one time or another. So you can just imagine if, poof, we don't need it anymore. That's just me speaking. So those are the only two reasons I could really think of that would make any sense not to let the people know what's going on.
That does make a lot of sense. I'm gonna have to ponder that one a little bit, because I've often thought about that too. Like, okay, with the idea of free energy and stuff, it's like, from my perspective, it's not the end of the proverbial end of the world, right? Well, we'll move on, we'll figure it out, and we'll create new industries of some kind. But when you put it the way that you did, I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit more to see if I still agree with what I thought before. maybe it is a bigger deal than what I'm realizing.
Just consider this for a minute. Tesla was right. And there's very good evidence that upon his death, all his research and records were seized. There's more than ample evidence. But his concept was, well, we set up a worldwide grid, draw energy from I think it was the ionosphere, and there it is, free power, free electric power. They're making a big deal out of electric cars today with battery packs that cost $30,000 if they go bad. What if all you needed was an antenna that big on the top of your car and you never had to recharge it? You'd never run out of fuel. Can you see the problem there?
Stuart, you got to jump in on that one.
Well, yeah, I've been fascinated for a while by the fact that there's a car brand called Tesla. It's an electric vehicle. And I wondered if the groundwork or preparation was being done by that gentleman in bringing this technology forward.
Well, it certainly could be, but at the time, they're going with standard batteries. When I say standard, I mean to our standards. Using lithium, which is immensely expensive, not at all good for the environment, the mining of it. So no matter what you do, you got a trade-off. You have to sacrifice this to get that. But when it comes to you through the air, man, that'd be hard to beat. But again, that's just my rhetoric.
Yeah, no, it's great. With Stuart and I, at one point, I don't know if it made it into one of our conversations, but he was postulating, like, what if Elon was doing this and all he's got to do is flip a switch, and he was like, "Yo, people, you don't have to charge your cars anymore because you're getting it through the air." That would be freaking wild.
Yeah, wouldn't it though? Think
Yeah.
what to do to the world as far as energy goes. It'd be a godsend on one hand, but you're going to have economic systems that's just going to collapse.
Temporarily, for sure. Like that's why I said, like, I had to think about it, because I would like to believe that some enterprising people would just simply come up with new industries or new products in some manner. But in any event, I want to kind of reel us back into the main part. If what can you give us a couple examples of, like, cases that you may have shared with our elected officials?
Well, not any in when I say we supply them with data, it's strictly statistical data. We use the same confidentiality standards that MUFON has used from day one. So what we do is, they get reports, breakdown by state, broke down by country. This many have been reported in this quarter, and it's all statistical. There's no names. There's no real. What can I say? Nobody is at risk. Put it that way. There are some, particularly most of the congressional fellows and ladies. Well, they're interested in their own state. Have we had much activity in this state? Yeah, and here's some cases of interest, and we'll give them kind of the details on that. Again, there's no names, there's no contact information, and they're all real interested hearing about their own state, and a number of them will say, "Oh yeah, it was a big deal back when this happened." Okay, we'll give you the details on it. Here's what we got. So we really do. We get a lot of that, and sometimes they'll say, "Yeah, there was this big rush of sightings in that," and okay, here you go. Another good example is, if you remember the Chinese balloon incident.
Oh yeah.
We looked at that, and then MUFON went back through their files, back through the years, and we found 6 absolutely identical experiences, and it was down to the niche. It was exactly the same, and every one of them, though, was over a military installation. So again, this is a case, I don't think it was extraterrestrial. Matter of fact, the remnants that was picked up had some American parts in it, but overall it was Chinese. So that's the thing we can do. We can go back at least to 1969, and we got files that go back to the 40s. And we, ever since I joined MUFON and kind of got in and knew what was going on, my dream was to build the largest database in the world. And I was reading through one of the older journals and came across what they referred to as Project Aquarius. And I thought, that is so interesting. Well, technology wasn't there. It was 70s. I mean, we was lucky we had 300 baud computers. But as it went on and on and on, finally we reached the point where the technology was there, and we was able to bring Project Aquarius into reality. 1.2 million pieces of evidence are in that file, and now we're making that available to the members. You go to the website, sign up for it, but if you get in and read just the Stringfield files alone, you'll just shake your head at the people involved. And yeah, we did have to redact it. That's the only thing. A lot of the names are removed, but a lot of them are not. It's just a lot of these folks are still alive today. And from Neil Armstrong to Gordon Cooper you name it, are mentioned in these files.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, and the people that were being worked with in Washington and some of the shenanigans that went on. So it's absolutely fascinating, and that's just one group of files. We got tons of them. So I'm very happy, very proud to have been able to be here when this thing got developed. There's a pet project. So it's online now. Everything's there. We literally have the largest database in the world, and most of the other countries where we have chapters have also put all of their national records into this project. So we got pretty good things going here.
That's amazing. So I'm kind of curious, just yes or no only, no specifics whatsoever, but have any Congress people or senators confided in you that they've had their own sightings or experiences?
Yes.
Wow.
I'd rather not go any further.
No, I wouldn't expect you to. I just wanted to know that, because I think that's pretty important for anyone listening to know that,
Well, there's more than one, but I won't name names. But in a meeting with one of the Congress people, it was described to me a sighting that I'm even trying to eliminate gender here. That this congressperson was exposed to a sighting. They're little bitty kids, and they saw this thing coming across the field, and they freaked out and they started running, and finally they tripped, fell down, and kept their heads down, and they rolled over. It was gone. So I took the description, went through the files, and John Schuessler called me. He said, "Is this what the person saw?" And I took it to them, and the person broke down in tears and started crying.
Wow.
It was identical. And I mean, we're going back quite a ways. We do have evidence of such a craft. I mean, lots of evidence. So anyway, yeah, there are people there that they have had the experiences. Like I say, Jimmy Carter himself said he won't laugh at a person that says they saw a flying saucer, because he did. And the response is very interesting.
That is fascinating, and I just think it's really important to put that out there, because today, in modern day, we have people in Washington who, are having these same sightings or experiences, and I think it helps open up the conversation. Just we don't have to know who they are, but the fact that there's a couple of them at least, I think it's important.
David, are there also people in aerospace and Silicon Valley who have confided in you and or are interested in the MUFON data?
Yes, sir, there are. Again, we have people in places, every industry, every laboratory. Somebody knows MUFON, and are willing to talk about it under certain circumstances. So, yeah, yes, we do. Industry is aware.
So it sounds like we have some preliminary legislation already in place in terms of UAP, which are commonly referred to as UFOs, and it sounds like there might even be more legislation in the works. Is that accurate? And what is your take on the big event of potential, presidential level disclosure?
We've been waiting for years, and so far, I forget the number, but quite a few of the more modern President said, we'll give disclosure. Yeah, none of them have. They to a position where, have any of you ever heard of a gentleman by the name of Jaime Ishid? He's the head of the Israeli space program. Brilliant guy. Also an intelligence agent. And you can Google this. He put in writing, he went on TV and he made the statement that when President Trump was in office the first time, he was that far away from total disclosure.
Wow.
Really?
And the aliens themselves waved them off, said, don't do this, don't drop this bomb on your people. Small doses. Just let go with small doses. Gee, guys, what do we got going on today? Little tidbits coming out here, little tidbits coming out there. Oh, here's the tic tac. Oh, yeah, look at that. We don't know what it is. It's probably the Russians. you know. So take it for what it's worth. I'm merely making a statement. I know sometimes that people would say, man, you're borderlining insanity, maybe. But when this information is coming from top doggy dogs with standing, reputations, you got to at least give it consideration.
Fascinating. I hadn't heard that before, Mike. That's brand new to me.
Likewise for me. I mean, is there? I'm gonna have to definitely look into that. Is there anything else? Like, I'm just kind of curious. If President Trump in his first term was like super close to doing it, and then he didn't, what was he contacted directly by the NHIs or whatever you want to call them, or was it the members of his staff? I'd really love to know just more details about that.
I can honestly tell you, I don't know. I don't know what else was involved there, but I can tell you, if you get into the records and go back, president after president after president at some point commented on that. You can look this up too. President Clinton, towards the end of his term, he was asked, you said you would give us disclosure. Why haven't you? And he says, I haven't because I can't. He says that information is being held by a part of the government that I am not a part of.
Wow.
Think about that. Hey, that you can look it up. I mean,
yeah, no, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. They've all made some comments here and there. I mean, President Reagan said, what if there was a force or other people out in the universe that would come and help us all to come together? What if? I didn't go very far, but he said it on TV.
I remember hearing about that. Something like, what if we were all faced with an alien threat not of this world? Our differences worldwide would disappear, or something to that effect. It's really fascinating stuff.
Gerald Ford was told when he asked for more information, he was told, sir, you have no need to know. Documented. So
I just can't, like, who has the gall, first of all, and then the authority to deny the president anything that they're asking for?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Wow.
I mean, we're living in a fascinating time. And when people would ask me, I'm going back several years, they say, when are we going to have disclosure? And I said, I don't think you'll see it in my lifetime, but you're starting to see the small doses coming out. Then I got to think, maybe I will see it in my lifetime. So, I'm closer to the end than I was the beginning, but we'll see.
I hope that happens. That'd be wonderful.
It would be. So, I mean, we do have reason to be optimistic. But you also have to worry, well, under what circumstances would they concede to give this up? But I do think we're being conditioned for a release, and I do hope it's in my lifetime that I can get to see it. And if it's after my lifetime, maybe I'll know anyway.
Hey, you never know.
Hey, I like that. I like where you're going there, David, because I wanted to ask some questions about, and feel free to not answer this if you don't want to, but what's your kind of spiritual orientation or background? How do you feel about those kind of topics?
I try to avoid mixing them because if you want to get into spirituality, read the Bible, the Old Testament. There's UFOs clearly identified. I mean, come on. So Ezekiel's wheel. There's people coming down in arrows. There's all sorts of interesting items. But again, who really wants to delve into it and try to make the assumption, well, or an arrow? Well, think of our rockets today, Ezekiel's wheel. There's a lot of inference there, especially the part when they start ascending up into heaven. So, but other than that, I usually don't try to mix it. There's people are entitled to their beliefs, and I don't want to get involved in hacking somebody off.
I think that's probably a wise position. Yeah, and that's another thing that might dismantle somewhat going forward, people's beliefs once disclosure occurs.
I have heard that, but like I said earlier in the interview, we've all grown up accepting this possibility. I don't think it would have the incredible impact that it might have had, in the past. So I think that by this time we're well conditioned. And I had one of the congressmen tell me, he said, it just, given the trillions and billions of galaxies, and they've got billions of planets. Come on. If we're the best the creator can do, maybe we ought to snoop around for another creator. And if you think about it for a minute, it's really, the concept that we're the only ones it's a hard nut to crack.
Dang. All good points.
David, could I please ask you about the ERT team? Now, I've just found out about this from Mike today. It's the Experiencer Resource Team. Has that been a part of MUFON for a long time now, or is that a relatively new addition?
Oh, the ERT? Yeah. Actually, I was the one, myself and Kathleen Malden actually hammered that together back in, oh my goodness, 12, 13, somewhere back there. And it's been around since then, yes.
Okay, so almost 15 years-ish, but not since the beginning. What was the catalyst for that?
Well, the thought process was well, if you have people who have actually, and with good reason. I mean, not pardon me, not some wacko coming off the wall with a tin hat on, but regular normal people who have had a traumatic experience. Maybe they've actually got burns. They're terrified. It makes such an impact on everything that the effects can just be damaging, just so damaging. If and I don't know if either one of you folks have ever had an actual experience, but it's life changing. Um, so at that time we had no way of actually going further with the experiencers from the standpoint, can we help them? Sometimes they just need somebody to talk to, somebody that they can tell this story to without being laughed at or ridiculed or maybe even sent to the hospital. Um, and that was the original concept of the operation. Um, and at the same time, scientific data could be gained. Well, if you had this person see something that looked like this, and 15 other people saw something that looked like that as well, you're starting to build a database. And for us, it's particularly difficult because we want the information, we want the data, but we also need to protect the experiencer to the best of our ability and to the extent of what they want. So that's the biggest challenge, really. Getting data versus don't tell anybody anything. So we try to meet in the middle with it, and that's where we are.
I really love that supportive aspect that MUFON does in supporting experiences. And I would say you've played that role for some of these political people too that have confided in you. Just the fact that they're able to talk openly with someone in confidence. I really respect what you're doing there.
Thank you. We try hard, we really do. And MUFONs, we've done a good job over the years. We've had a few bumps in the road, not that everybody, but yeah, we try to do as much as we can do for the benefit of humanity.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, so when you were mentioning for anyone who's had an experience as a life-changing event, I'm almost wondering if that might play a part in the whole disclosure thing too. And the reason I say that is because I was actually really surprised when we had the first hearings back in 2023, and even before that, the Tic Tac and the government basically saying, "Yep, it's real. We don't know what it is." That was sort of shocking to me. Like, wow, the government just said that they're real and they don't know what it is. In a way, I think it was a soft disclosure. But for me, who's been really interested in this topic for a very long time, and I'm an investigator now and such, it had a pretty profound impact. And I'm wondering, like, if someone isn't in all about this all day, right? What it would be like for them. So I don't know. What do you think about it? It's just total speculation, of course, but what do you think about that aspect of it? Like the shocking aspect of the official admission that there's other intelligent beings out there.
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Small doses, trickle here, trickle there. Maybe after a while you get a small stream, and then the day comes when it's accepted. It's out in the open.
Wow, I love that. So concise, and it feels right, actually. Awesome.
Oh, there must be people holding on to key bits of information. I can tell there are from what you're talking about here, Mike, and what you're both talking about presidents being told you're not privy to that information. So there are people out there that know what's going on, I would assert. I'm not sure who they are. I'm guessing they're from the intelligence community or aerospace. They're bound by clearances, so they have reasons why they can't speak openly. So it's a very difficult, awkward situation.
Yes, it certainly is. And this is just me talking. Don't. It's my personal opinion. There could be less than 10, 12 people who really know everything. And these folks are possibly in aerospace, the government. Who knows? and I really don't know. You can speculate from now till the cows come home, but the hard fact of it is if you really think about it, it could be a tiny, tiny group that really knows everything.
That's wild. I still have a hard time wrapping my head around that idea. I mean, I can understand it, but like how can such a potentially small number of people keep something so wrapped up for such a generations of time? I mean, it boggles my mind.
I'll give you another little tidbit. Now, this is just kind of more of a light side of it, but I can't remember the exact. It was late 50s, maybe early to mid 60s. At the Monroe Institute, they had a program called the Mysterious Nine, and basically, they were channeling various entities, be they ancient Egyptians, there were alien forces that were willing to be channeled. And one of the things that was gained out of it was that they said there really is a federation of planets, and Earth on the furthest piece away from their sphere of influence. It's just inside their sphere of influence. And they talked about the prime directive, non-interference. They talked about all these things. Have any of those terms sound familiar to you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the people that was involved was Gene Roddenberry. And so much of the stuff that you heard in Star Trek was from that channeling. Everything from invisible, clear aluminum to the Federation of Planets to the Prime Directive. So, like I say, this is just a lighthearted tidbit, but
Okay, that's brought up another question for me. Have you had any Hollywood people come to you? I mean, people like Spielberg on that level asking questions about MUFON?
yes, sir, we've had a number of them. As a matter of fact, Close Encounters, did you know that almost all of those sightings leading up to that came from the MUFON files?
Wow.
So, yeah, Hollywood knows. Dan Aykroyd's been involved. Modine's been involved. At least showing interest. You know what I mean? I can go on and on. It's a Hollywood star is going to be talking at our convention.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
So, there is a Hollywood connection. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Every conversation Stuart and I have, we're putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and we do go all over the map. But it's always fascinating because sometimes it's hard to put into words, but you just connected some dots for me as well right now. That's really great stuff. I'm feeling almost like we're coming to a natural resolution here, but I have a question or two more to go. Stuart, do you have anything else before I kind of lead into that way?
Please proceed, because I'm now absorbing that last comment that, just like you're saying, that's amazing.
Okay, great. So I wanted to... Yeah, so I've heard that there was some form of partnership with Daniel Sheehan and the New Paradigm Institute, and maybe even Stephen Bassett with the Paradigm Research Group and MUFON. Can you speak a little bit to that, and like how is everybody working together in that manner, and what's sort of the goal?
Well, it's taken some time because there really wasn't that many organizations, I mean, of any consequence. and we've reached a point where we're all willing to hold hands on this. We're all willing to try to work together. We're doing some work with many of the folks that you had mentioned, and I think that might be the end run. If everybody can come together, and come on, guys, let's share this, let's shake hands, let's get this job done. And I think that's where it's going. And it doesn't hurt one bit for the groups on a worldwide basis, and that's what's happening. Coming together, sharing, working together. And I don't think that there's any effort bigger than what's being made right now. I just don't know too much what else can we do. But we will continue to keep trying, and we'll keep digging, and hopefully we'll get some answers. So yeah, it's a different world now, and there's not really competition. We're all fighting for the same thing. So hopefully that will be fruitful.
Excellent. Perhaps we can talk about, like, if someone's interested in MUFON, maybe joining as a member, or maybe even trying to become a investigator or whatnot. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. MUFON, everyone's free to join. No, not join for free. But no, it's extremely reasonable. You go to MUFON.com. And right up there, you'll see a button that says join, push the button, and off you go. You can join for, like, if you can't come up with the $59, we've got like X number of dollars a month that you could put into it. But also it runs, if you do all of the add-ons, now you're talking a chunk of change. But that gives you the live streaming, that gives you MUFON TV, that gives you Project Aquarius, the researchers levels. So really, you can get in at any stage that you want, and you can go as far as you want. Your first step, of course, is to join. If you want to get in the game, become a field investigator. We have MUFON University, which is quite an operation. As a matter of fact, my wife designed the original one. And we had the first online testing program, and that's evolved into MUFON University. So yeah, my lovely wife Sharon did that. Become an FI. Investigate X number of cases, and then you can get as much or as little involved as you want. We need state directors. We need all kinds of, assistant state directors. We can use all the help we can get, because, we're in all 50 states and 46 different nations. So, if the folks are interested in getting more deeply involved, it's easy to do, and it's not going to break your back. At the very least, you'll have access to, like, the top 20, the last 20 reports that people can log in. They can see the latest reports that's come in. Of course, it's redacted. So it's just a matter of how far you want to go and how deep you want to go. And you can start the whole ball game by just going to MUFON.com.
Excellent. Thank you so very much. And thank you for your time. This has been really wonderful for us. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to chat with us.
Well, you're quite welcome. And I really try to deal with, like I say, our people, be it by Zoom or in person, but there's only so many hours in the day, so it's kind of tough to do, but I love doing it. I love it.
Understandable. Oh well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in a few months again. I'll be at the symposium too in this July. Oh, why don't we talk about that real quick, because this is gonna go out in like a week or two. So people want to join us at the symposium. It's open to the public, right? Anyone can join.
Oh, absolutely. And if you want to just come through and walk through, there's no charge. You go buy a book or a T-shirt, or you know what I mean. There's artists there that you can buy things from, and then you can get a whole package that's all of the presentations, all of the speakers, the banquet, the whole work. So it just depends on how far you want to go. You can go from the Diamond Pass to walking in for free.
Nice. So something for everybody. That's awesome. All right, Stuart, any last minute comments from you?
Yeah, I want to express my gratitude, David. Much love and respect to you. I've really enjoyed this time, and I'm really impressed by the work you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes that's real nice to hear. Thank you. But yeah, we're trying, we're doing our best, and we're knocking them dead. We really are. MUFON rocks.
Yes, we do. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, David. And like I said, we'll see you real soon.
All righty. Bye-bye. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk with you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. All right, Reverend Stu. What do you think?
Well, the first thing I want to comment on is what a beautiful energy David's got. I really enjoyed that right from the start. It's got a beautiful, almost youthful type of vibration about him. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, he definitely does. And I think he's got to have a lot of energy to do everything that he does, because just being the director of MUFON is more than a full-time job. And then he has other things he does as well. So I don't know how David does it all, quite frankly.
It sounds like a lot of people in these higher echelons might know who he is and recognize him.
It definitely sounds that way for sure. That was pretty interesting to hear.
Now, I've got to tell you, at the end when he was talking about MUFON, even I felt interested. I felt a bit of a pull to get involved.
It's quite fascinating. Like literally anyone can sign up as a member, and you can go through the database and you can look at various sighting reports, and so you can see the photos and videos that are submitted. The identities you won't be able to see, but you can see the detailed account of what they say, and then from there we will contact those folks. Most of the time they will speak with us. Sometimes they don't want to, but I mean, that's a big part of what we do is the witness interview, as we call it, and you really get a lot of information from, even though there's a lot of detailed questions you have to answer to make a report. When you talk to somebody, it's really you really get a lot more out of it.
Well, another thing I wanted to comment on was how beautiful that story was, where he was talking to someone, a political figure, and he subsequently went and found an account or a description of the same craft that person saw, and it made the person emotional, which I thought was really amazing.
Yeah, that just goes to show you how powerful it really is. And I think I mentioned this in maybe one of our first or second episode, where in a way, I can sometimes get a sense of, what, authentic sighting versus something maybe more prosaic, because there's stuff that emotionally comes out in people that I can sense. And it's a very powerful thing. When you see something that defies everything that you know, it changes you for sure. And even more so if you've had an experience.
Also, Mike, one of my big takeaways from this interview is the unifying nature of disclosure. So I was very impressed to hear about the bipartisan aspect of it, and that these groups that are working towards disclosure, working together. Really, I'm very encouraged by that.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a global thing, and it does take over. We are all on the same team pushing forward. And it almost seems like, I don't know, maybe I'm the one on the short bus here, but it seems like it's an unspoken truth. Like everybody sort of knows this is real and true, but yet we don't want to talk about it.
Okay, but there
Publicly,
does seem to
anyway,
be
right?
Well, there does seem to be a shift, and I didn't get an opportunity, but I wanted to ask him, have you noticed some sort of exponential interest in it? And by what he's saying, it sounds like there has been an increase in interest in this topic.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that for sure. Fascinating stuff. So in the intro, I touched upon this a little bit. So I wanted to go and touch upon it again because I pulled up the article. I think it was a February 2024 MUFON Monthly Journal that I had put out, a statistical report for the state of California, and again, globally, there was a little over 7,000 reports throughout the world in that particular year, and that was pretty much average. I went back like 5-6 years, and it was pretty average throughout. And California always sort of ranks at the top month over month, with very few exceptions. But sometimes either Florida and Texas are tied for the number 2 spot, and I think that's potentially because of population, more eyes to the skies, right? But also military installations. And there's definitely a correlation between those things. But anyway, let me just read real quick the first 2 short paragraphs of that, because it was, I thought, pretty interesting. In the calendar year of 2023, the state of California, USA, there were a total of 728 reports submitted of alleged UAP sightings to MUFON. UAPs are commonly referred to as UFOs. Of those 728 reports made in 2023, 291 reports reference sightings that actually took place prior to 2023. So for those purposes, I left those 291 reports out of the analysis because they happened before, but that doesn't take away from their gravity or whatnot. But I just wanted to do a very fine look at the stats of my state to see how that all goes. And then I broke it out in terms of, like, these are the days, these are the most common days, these are the most common times of the day, these are the shapes, etc. And it's a very visual kind of thing. So if anyone's a member or want to become a member, you can check out that report in full detail.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I'm even more interested to join now.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing too. So I would encourage everyone to do the same.
Fantastic. I love what you're doing with this, Mike, with MUFON, and I'm learning more about MUFON on this journey with you. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And one more time, this has been we're an independent channel. So we did do a deep dive into MUFON today, but all the other conversations that we have here are separate from that, and it doesn't necessarily reflect their views or interests and whatnot, because we do go down all kinds of different avenues. And that's partially why I like to do this with you, is because, we can sort of have our freedom to explore all the different avenues as well. Because MUFON is very scientific. In fact, the mission statement is the scientific investigation of UFOs for the benefit of humanity.
Okay, that's a beautiful mission statement. Fantastic.
And I was reminded too. I did forget that the FBI were training the initial MUFON team members, and that's been passed down from sort of generation to generation, as it were. And we also, I mentioned it before, the classification system we use it's the Hynek-Vallée classification system, based on close encounter 1, 2, 3, etc. So it's pretty wild to think that the things that I do on an almost daily basis are modeled after the most intelligent and experienced people in investigating all kinds of things.
Now, the FBI assisting with that training indicates to me that they presumably see this as a serious issue, and they're interested in this research continuing. So I find that very indicative of how important this is.
Yes, that's about all I could say is yes.
All right. Just another piece of the puzzle for me, Mike. And I got a lot of pieces of the puzzle this interview.
Yeah, that was really great. So just want to thank everybody out there again for joining along with this conversation. We have a bunch of library full of amazing conversations as well. Remember to smash the like button and share us. Drop us a comment as well. All those things help tell the robot that other people should hear these conversations. And as we said in the beginning, we do cover so many different topics within the main topic that it's sometimes maybe difficult for the robots to know where to steer the conversations to. So hopefully you can all help us out just by pushing some buttons for free.
Thank you. Much love to everyone out there. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful journey.
We'll see you back here real soon.